And welcome everyone to another Smart Money Circle episode. I'm Adam Sarhan. With me today is Michael Benstock, who's the CEO and chairman of the board at Superior Group of Companies, ticker symbol is SGC. Michael, thank you so much for taking the time and welcome to the Smart Money Circle.
Happy to be here, Adam. Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you for being here. So, Michael, I always like to begin. Can you please tell us your story and how you got to where you are today?
Yeah, it's a long story. The story of the business is the business was founded by my great grandmother in 1920, 105 years ago. She had loaned some guys some money. They couldn't pay her back. She wound up taking the stock of the company. She wound up marrying one of those guys later on as her first husband and passed away. And it's been a generational business ever since. I'm the fourth generation of this business running it. We were a business in 1920 that made straitjackets. That was before they had medicine to take care of people who had mental illness. They put them into straitjackets. But we also were in the operating theater apparel business, which is really the roots of our business. We were called Superior Surgical at that time. We didn't change our name actually till the 1990s. And through the years, a lot of transformation. In 1968, my father and grandfather took the company public. So we've been public almost 60 years. And I was never going to come into the business. It was my father had me working in the factories when I was younger, and it's not really what I wanted to do. And I escaped to a foreign country. I actually moved to Israel when I was 18 years old, and I spent 5 years in Israel and served in the IDF for 3 years and did some university there as well. And then came back married to the United States and started in the business. This was in 1978. And so fast forward. Over the years, we were still a uniform business, but we had, through some really strategic acquisitions, we had gotten into other aspects of uniforms, doing food service and hospitality, airlines, and so on. And that was our business. We were a Superior Uniform Group by the late 90s. And I grew up kind of on the operations side of the business, running our distribution and factories all over the world. They were first in the United States and then all over the world, and our IT and so on. And in 2003, I was made CEO of the company by our board, who had hired consultants to make a determination as to what do you do in a family publicly traded business with succession. In any event, that same year, we got into promotional products because a lot of our customers were saying, we want one-stop shopping. Your competition is saying they can do promotional products. You need to do it also. So we did, with very little investment. We started selling promotional products to our existing customers. And if I fast forward about 15 years or 13 years from that, 2016, we were sitting with all cash, no debt. We had just bought another uniform company a couple of years beforehand. It was really the only one that we wanted to buy. And so what are we going to do with all this cash? We had a nice dividend already to our shareholders. And we said, let's look at this promotional business. It's actually been a pretty good business for us. And we spent 2 years from 2014 to 16 looking for the right company to buy. And if we're not for one of our executives who was part of the YPO organization reaching out, we probably never would have met these people. But somebody said, "Hey, we got a guy who doesn't want to sell his business, but he can tell you a lot about the business." We wound up buying his business, and that business was Bamco. And that business that we bought in 2016 was doing $32 million trailing revenue. Today, that business, the same products and everything, does about 250 million. So about 8 times what it was doing back then, just 7 short years ago or 8 short years ago. In 2005, I'm going to transgress a little bit now. We could not hire people in our community for entry-level jobs. So I said, well, we got a production planning office in El Salvador where we have factories, send the work down there. And it was order entry work. And we did. And it was so successful, we kept taking every time we needed a new hire in our corporate headquarters, we just put it down in El Salvador. Fast forward to 2008, we ran out of space in this little spot we had leased. We had about 80 people. And we wound up buying a much bigger space. And we didn't know what to do with it, so we decided we would sell our services to other people. And so that today is our most profitable business, the call center business. And we are operating in 5 countries. And we have about 5,000 employees in that business answering the phone for U.S. clients. So we kind of have this three-legged stool of healthcare uniforms and then branded merchandise and products, including uniforms, and then we have the call center business. Our business today is approaching $600 million in revenue, and that's my story. That's as
I
short as
love
I can make it.
it. Oh, what a fantastic story. I know that your numbers, I look at them far away, they're growing very nicely. Earnings are growing, revenue's growing. You're an undervalued growth stock, in my humble opinion, so I love it. I think you're the first person I've had that's a fourth generation CEO. I had a third generation CEO on once, but you were fourth generation, so you definitely took the cake on that one. And
Well, I might
congratulations.
not have been had my father fired me a couple times and then brought me back. So back in the day,
Yeah, you're
bless
here
him.
now. That's the important thing. You've
I'm
made
here
it.
now.
Like
Yeah.
Elton John song, I'm still standing. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Or Tarzan beating his chest kind of a thing. So I
Yeah.
love that. I love that. All right, Michael, next question for you is thank you, by the way, for the fantastic background about you and your company. Let's talk about risk management. You've been able to be successful in multiple businesses, different industries. How do you handle risk, and what are some mistakes you see people make with respect to risk management?
It's a really good question. So let's start. The biggest risk in our uniform business was always what would happen in a country where we were operating if that country were to shut down. And so we developed in the 1990s, when I was on the operating side of the business, a redundant manufacturing strategy. And we said, look, it's great. We're gonna have a main factory doing everything, but we're always going to have a second factory. And with respect to raw materials that we don't produce, we're always going to have a second source. So we're going to vet those sources all out in advance. We're going to make sure they're compliant, socially compliant, and all those other things, but that they can actually produce the products that we need should we ever need them. And lo and behold, a pandemic hits us and countries are being shut down. And fortunately, we were able to use our redundant manufacturing strategy, as well as, we've been in countries where there's been civil unrest. Uh, we were operating in El Salvador during a civil war. We've operated in parts of Africa when there have been wars, because typically, the places that are the cheapest to manufacture are the places with the highest risk. So we always had a redundant manufacturing strategy. Uh, as far as managing reputational risk, we have a pretty strong code of ethics, and we've been before anybody knew what socially responsible was. I have to take you back to the Clinton administration, second one, and Robert Reich, who was the Secretary of Labor at the time, after the child labor for celebrity who got caught making their products in a factory with child labor in China. He said, I'm going to go out and find more responsible manufacturers. And he called out every single apparel company in the United States, send me what you're doing to avoid situations like this. Well, we already had a social responsibility program in place even before anybody even knew the term social responsibility. We didn't call it that. We were just doing the right thing. We didn't want children working for us. We wanted people paid a fair wages. We audited wages wherever we were in the world just to make sure people were being paid what they deserved. And so Robert Wright came out and he came out with 10 trend centers. We happened to be one of them. We were the only manufacturer. Every other one was a retailer. So you had Macy's, you had all the big Saks Fifth Avenue, and then you had us. And I think if you go back and you look up Superior Surgical and you Google it, that's probably the most that is said about Superior Surgical. So I spent the following year after that training other companies how to be socially responsible. It was part of our give to the system, and would conduct seminars everywhere across the United States on how to be socially responsible. So I think that mitigates a lot of your risk too. If you're doing the right thing wherever you are, it's and always taking the high road. And for me, there's no gray area between social responsibility and not. There's behave ethically, treat people like you want to be treated, pay a fair wage for what you're doing. There's plenty of other risks in a business. I mean, there's reputational risk. Obviously, this speaks to that to some extent, but there's financial risk of risk of customer risk. We stay very close to our customers. I think part of mitigating risk has to do with surrounding yourself with the right people. And funny, this business I told you that we bought in 2016, one of the principles of that business really taught me how important it was to surround myself with the smartest people I could and not settle for anything less than that. And I think that's made a huge difference in my life. Like I sleep much better at night knowing I've got really smart people working around me and that they're mitigating the risks and that they're evaluating the risks instead of me having to be the single point of wanting that to get done. So I think it's just being around the right people.
Yeah, I love it. I absolutely love it. That's absolutely brilliant. Thank you for that. So, timeless lessons. Like we've done a lot. You've been around, you've served in the military. Thank you for your service. What are some timeless lessons you've learned about life, business, relationships, anywhere you want to go with that question, please?
Uh, Keep your family close. We all make business sacrifices, I think, that impact our family, but family needs to know oftentimes that you're doing it for them. But there does come a point in time where you've got to realize your family is the most important thing that you have. And I don't, and I encourage other people not to collect friends. There's only a few people in this world who will have your back, and make sure when you count your friends that they're the people that will have your back. As far as lessons, I think hard work trumps a lot. I've seen some really smart people who were not very hard workers, and I've seen some very not. I've seen them not succeed. I've seen some very hard workers who weren't particularly smart succeed. So, but I do think hard work is something that's in short supply these days. Everybody's looking for this balance of life. I can tell you if you want to be a CEO of a company or you want to start your own company, because I've started multiple businesses now, and watched other people start businesses, invested in people's businesses, you better be prepared to make sacrifices. You're going to be working day and night, and you're not going to get a good night's sleep for a long time. I know there's this panacea out there of, this guy is a startup and he sold his company or he's got a valuation of $1 billion. Trust me, that guy does not sleep at night. I know those people. They do not sleep at night. And sleep's overrated. You don't need 10 hours of sleep a night. 4 or 5, you can get by just fine. And everybody who knows me and travels with me around the world knows that I get by on less than 5 hours of sleep a night, and I'm fine. I think I think the lesson, some biblical lessons of treat those as you wish to be treated, is really important. And I think being very direct with people it's a lesson that I've had to teach other executives is like, if somebody's not giving you what you need to tell them. You don't need to say, what am I going to do? You need to be completely honest. They're not going to evolve or change unless you are. They're not going to know what you're thinking. You think they know what you think, but they don't. Say it to them. And quite frankly, understand that you only have so much impact on changing people's behavior. I don't believe that there's a lot of people who are so broken that you're able to fix. I did when I was younger. I said, you keep them on a long time. I can fix them. I can fix them. You can't fix them. All right. Surround yourself by better people, or accept the fact that they're broken and that they're a charity case for you, and you're going to keep them on. But I encourage all of our executives every time they come to me, say, look, I'm not getting from Joe what I need. Yeah, I'm like, and what makes you think you will?
Right.
Well, no, if they just knew, well, go tell them. And if you still don't get it from them, all right, it's time to give Joe another opportunity. And you're probably doing Joe a favor.
Yeah.
We sometimes sit in meetings and we've reduced headcount for whatever reason, and here or abroad. And it's always, we belabor the decisions. And then 6 months later, it's like, what was the impact of the business to, relieving ourselves of those people? Because it's usually the people who need to be relieved. And it's usually nothing. It's like nothing. We got rid of a third of our customer service department and we didn't have one issue with customer service after that. We were just overstaffed, but nobody was telling us. So it is, you've got to constantly right size your business. I've got executives now literally that every single year top grade their departments. Every single year they're looking at, stack ranking their people and saying, oh, the people on the bottom here, I don't think they're ever going to make it. It's time to replace them. Let's go. But it needs to be a very fluid situation. I mean, it's tough when you're in a family business, because everybody starts to feel like family, right? Until you actually have to do some eliminations for business reasons. And then everybody says, I thought this was a family. Well, it's not a family, it's a business, even though it felt like a family business. And that eventually evolves. We see that when we buy other companies, like, okay, you're going to buy us, but I'm only going to sell to you if you keep everybody. So,
Yeah,
well, that's not going to happen. All right. So, and then they're like, well, why not? It's like, because we can do things more efficiently than you can, because of our scale.
yeah. Yeah, it makes perfect sense. So almost what you're saying here reminds me of a few things that come to mind. When you're looking at timeless advice and you're looking at building businesses, you want to do what's best for the business. Understand family is your most important, most valuable thing, and don't mix those two priorities. Keep the family first. Make sure when you're doing right, when you work on the business. If you have people that aren't serving the business, either move them to a different seat or replace them or ask them to leave because you've got to do what's best for the business. That's how you can survive 4 generations. If you do what's best for Tony or Joey or Michael or Harry or Sandra, the business isn't going to thrive. So I love what you're saying there. It's understanding and almost prioritizing or ranking your priorities or your focus on highest ROI and then down and then down and then down.
Yeah,
If I understand you correctly.
that's
So
exactly right. That's
yeah,
exactly right.
perfect. So other side of the coin, timeless mistakes that you've made. How do you learn from them? How do you overcome them? You've seen other people make anywhere you want to go.
I had, oh, boy, I could go for a long time on my mistakes. And sometimes I do with my executives just to get them to kind of own up to their own. Uh, so I'll tell you a mistake. There was one point at which somebody pitched me a license, first license ever given out to shirts that could change messaging. All right. It was a ripper would tear away back to the shirt with Velcro or snaps. And basically you could have grocery store workers walking around a supermarket with advertising 1 hour a day Heinz ketchup and the next hour Golden mustard or hot dog buns or whatever you wanted them to do. And we actually did pretty well with this in stadiums. We bought this license. We spent, I don't know, $1.5 million in the first year and a half and all this. And we got into a couple stadiums. But when we tried to put it into retail, they're like, our employees will not walk around like a billboard. Right. As a matter of fact, they're looking for something that is more understated so that when they walk out of the store, they don't look like, they're an advertisement for our brand, for McDonald's or whomever. So that was a pretty expensive lesson. That was 2 years, a year and a half of, trying to figure out how to make it work and a half a year to figure out how to get the hell out of it. That was fun. I, over the years, I bought machines that I was told that I needed to have for some level of automation. Uh, Biggest mistake, I would say, if I look back, the one that I still have a little PTSD about was putting in ERP in 2000. I won't mention what ERP we put in, but putting in ERP is a big deal. And I think we totally underestimated what the impact of that was going to be. And we did put it in. I think we lost about 20% of our customers during the first 18 months. We were doing about 100 million in revenue then, so maybe we lost. Maybe it wasn't quite 20%, but it was pretty high as I remember it. And I look back on it, and it was we would not be in business today had we not done that. But not understanding the impact of the business and doing what we could to mitigate that up front, so we wouldn't lose 20% of our customers, was a huge mistake.
Right.
I wasn't CEO at the time, but I still had a big part as IT did report up to me. We've also put in other technology in the mid '90s. We put in robotic distribution. Nobody was doing robotic distribution in the mid
Oh,
'90s,
really?
but
Yeah.
we were. All right, we were on
Right.
bleeding edge, and we paid the price for about a year and a half of a lot of pain, literally working 7 days a week. I was putting in 12, 14-hour days, 7 days a week in the distribution center, running the business because I was on the operations side of the business at that point and trying to make this work. Again, we have robotic distribution in our two largest centers today. It's very, very productive. It's much more highly advanced than what we put in 1994. But you could say no pain, no gain. I wish I could have done without the pain, and I could have to a large extent had we anticipated it better. So part of it is, making sure you've got a better plan for what happens when things go wrong, as opposed to when things go right.
That's very, very smart. So you're saying with the mistakes is you have to make these decisions. There's an element of risk and reward. You want to mitigate that risk, which you spoke about earlier, but have a plan in place in the event that that doesn't go according to what you expect. And you don't get that reward. So this
Yeah.
way, if things go wrong, you have a plan B or a plan C and so on and so
Yeah.
forth.
Let me
Right?
just jump in a second on. We also, another mistake that I've learned from, and I think this is probably for a really good lesson for most CEOs. Uh, I used to believe, we've done a lot of acquisitions over the years. I don't know, since I've been here, maybe 12 or 13 acquisitions over the 40 years. And I used to buy broken companies and try to fix them. And it would take 2 or 3 years to integrate them and fix them and get them right. And, the ROIs never looked as good as I thought they were going to look because I couldn't get it done quick enough. And I could say I finally learned in the last 10 years not to buy broken companies. Buy well-run companies that are making good money that you don't have to spend time fixing, and so that you're spending time figuring out how to accelerate their growth rather than fixing them. That's a huge lesson, and it took me too long to learn it.
No, that's really, really powerful. And it's what you do with your redundancy that you built into the other levels of your business, which helped you survive COVID and help you navigate all those political uncertainties and the other situations. It's kind of what you're doing here, if I understand you correctly, right? With the mistake side of it, not the buying the acquisition side of it, but when you make mistakes, you want to have plan B, plan C, plan
Oh,
D.
sure.
Redundancy is really, really powerful.
Yeah, I mean, people laugh because plan B and C isn't enough. I want to keep going. And what it's like chess. It's like what happens at this move? Where are my 3 moves down the road? Uh, but you gotta have smart people to do that because
Yeah.
most people, normal people can't see past the next move.
Yeah, it's so powerful. Okay,
And
next
I'm not
question.
always the one who sees past the next move. A lot of times it's the smart people around me who are telling me, no, that would be bad because of X. You
And
know.
then you go with the best idea, right? The best idea
Go with the
wins.
best idea. It's not always the one that's the most risk averse. It's maybe the one that has the best, IRR or the best chance for success or whatever.
Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense. All right, Michael, next question. Leadership. So as a fourth generation CEO, what makes a great leader? What would you like to share lessons, timeless lessons about leadership? Anywhere you want to go with respect to leadership, please.
Well, I read a lot. I've read a lot of leadership books. I I believe that all of them have a common message about compassionate leadership and so on. But I even sometimes call people out on LinkedIn for believing that there's like one word that defines leadership. There isn't. Uh, Leaders come in all shapes, sizes, demographics, and quite frankly, trust I think is huge. I mean, you're only going to be as good to your customers as your employees believe that you are to them.
Oh,
Uh,
wow.
and so, if my employees don't trust me, if they don't regard me as a good leader, what kind of service are they going to give to our customers? And so our customers' viewpoint has more to do with how my employees view me than how our employees view the customer. Because they're going to give great service if they believe in the mission of the company, they believe in what I'm selling, which is we can be better than everybody. We are better than everybody. We need to be even better, even though we're the best. Uh, they all have to buy into that. And I would say in each of our businesses, and it's easier in the newer businesses, the call center business, which for us is less than 20 years old, and even the branded merchandise business, because they've been able to grow their culture organically over a couple of years. We've grown a culture over 105 years. So a lot of where we've gotten to has been me having to relieve myself of a lot of the baggage that I had because my father ran the company very differently than I did. My grandfather, my great grandmother. I would say I'm a lot less autocratic. I don't make most of the decisions anymore. And I used to be in a position, I'm the leader. So every major decision has to flow through me. That was before I decided that I needed to really surround myself by smart people so they could make decisions that I didn't need to. Back to what I said earlier.
Yep.
But you can't. I've seen some of the smartest people try to micromanage every decision in their business, and ultimately it ends in failure. It ends
Yeah.
in failure. And I've actually had a sit. I've sat on other boards as well, and I've seen good leaders, bad leaders. But I believe that you got to give people the rope, not enough to hang themselves. You got to pull them out. I mean, they're going to make mistakes, and you got to accept that. If they're willing to take the risks of making mistakes, and it's a calculated risk, then you got to support it. Like, let's go. One thing you have to do as a leader, you have to learn to fail fast. Don't hang on. If you decided something, you decide this is how we're going to do it, and it's not working, get the hell out fast before you spent more money and time and before you lose all credibility with everybody else.
Yeah, that is really, really powerful. I love that. Okay, Michael, let's talk about adversity. What's some adversity? How do you handle adversity? Successful people deal with adversity differently. So I'm curious on how do you handle adversity and what are some obstacles you had to overcome?
Well, I drink a lot. No, okay. You handle adversity by talking it out. It's like there's no better way when you're a CEO of a company, or you're in a position of leadership, not even CEO, it could be many levels down below that. You feel the pressure of success. You want to succeed. So, and adversity comes in many forms, right? It could come from coworkers, it could come from customers, it could come from suppliers, supply chain, all kinds of. You just work your way through it and be honest with everybody around you about what you're going through, and solicit from customers and from employees and everybody else how to get to a much better place. Maybe you can't resolve the issue completely, the adversity still exists, but how do you at least pivot? Good example. March, I think it was 7th of 2020, we get the call that got to shut down. All right. That evening, all our leaders are on. I mean, you don't get more adverse than that. You're in the call center business. You can't, the Bukele in El Salvador says you can't bring your 2,000 people in to your call center. You're not going to be able to answer phones for everybody. Okay. Get all leaders on the business. So everybody's got a different part in this. Okay. What are we going to sell? Because nobody's going to buy uniforms if they're shutting the country down, right? We're
Right.
primarily uniforms at that point. It's like, okay, they're not going to buy promotional products either. Well, they might. They might do a lot of employee gifting if their employees are at home. Okay, let's come up with great strategies on employee gifting. What are we going to do with our office in China? Uh, we're gonna go and we're going to source hand sanitizer, masks, and so over the 2-year period from March of 2020, we sold about $160 million of container loads of hand sanitizer and masks and shields and all kinds of things for the COVID marketplace. And it saved the company. And it was that ability to pivot. It was like, we saw a cotton crisis coming in 2010. It's like, there's not going to be cotton. There's a worldwide shortage of cotton. What are we going to do? So we went out and bought raw cotton, which manufacturers like us rarely do. We actually took positions in raw cotton so that we would have enough. We wound up having cotton. There was no shortage for us, but all our competition didn't. So we got to the benefit of being able to sell a lot more cotton products back then than any of our competition. But it's that ability to pivot and say, okay, this is what we do, but in an adverse situation, what are we going to do differently? And most people can't wrap their head around that. Different times and different adverse conditions call for different solutions. You just got to have smart people around you who are willing to go that. When we said, one of our executives said on the call, we're going to sell hand sanitizer. Of course, the lawyers jumped in and said, you can't sell hand sanitizer. The FDA has got to approve it. No, the FDA is giving special dispensation. We don't know what the FDA is going to do. I said, good, we're buying. Okay, go try to get insurance for it, but we're buying because if it's the only thing we can sell, there's really no risk here. So we did. We did gloves. It was a fun time. Didn't sleep for 2 years, but it was fun. We were selling container. We were buying containers and putting them on the water to the U.S. before we even had a buyer for the container. And along that 30-day journey, we would sell the container and never touch it and get paid in advance of actual delivery. It was wonderful. It was a great time.
Absolutely brilliant. I absolutely love that. You pivoted on a dot. I mean, wow, that is really, really fantastic. And like you said, it saved the company. So hats off to you. I mean,
We were
great
very
job.
fortunate that we had this office in China. We've always had people on the ground wherever we are. Another strategy, besides our redundant manufacturing strategy, there's a thing around here. It says Michael's laws, and one of the laws is if we're manufacturing in a factory, we have one of our people in that factory so that we know they're socially compliant, we know they're going to produce the quality, and they're going to use the materials that were spec'd out for them to use. And we were just lucky for that. We had all these people, 35 people in an office in Guangzhou, China, when we called them the next day, it was already middle of the night. It was already there next day. And we said, can you guys get us hand sanitizer? I said, yeah, we buy hand sanitizer for the kits for Instacart now for the drivers. And it's like, oh, okay, so you know where to get it. Yeah. How about masks? Yeah, we do that for this customer. And before you knew it, we had stuff going, and we'd already gotten factories to commit to us when everybody else was just trying to find a factory.
That's powerful. That is really, really powerful. Super, super great job. All right, final question for you today, Michael. What is the best piece of advice you'd like to give the audience or your 30-year-old self?
My 30-year-old self. Learn to play golf. I don't know how to play golf. Uh, so I feel like I'm left out all the time. Uh, there's a lot of smart people around you, and take advice from people, read a lot. Uh, uh, a lot of executives say, I don't have the time to go to seminars and listen to other speakers and everything. But those are the things that get the wheels turning in a different direction than the way they're turning. You've got to put yourself out there and talk to people who are thought leaders in their different areas of expertise. I'm going to read your book, Psychological Analysis, now, since you got it up there. Uh,
Perfect.
it's like there's a wealth of knowledge out there today, easier than ever, right? With Google and Chat GPT and everything. I mean, you got a lot of ways to get information, but the best information you can get still is meeting with people who have done it before.
Yeah, experience. I love it. Well, Michael, thank you so much for taking the time to
Thank
speak
you.
today. Congratulations on your success, and
Thanks,
hopefully we'll
Ed.
have you on again soon. This was really fantastic.